Welcome everyone to a Good Vibes Gaming discussion, and this week our patrons voted on all of our choices, and Ash's won out his choice. And you know, with Ash, we're going to bring the good vibes. That's been a little thing. We've gone a little negative in the last two, but we're all positivity this time around, except for the fact that Ash isn't actually here this time because, hey, construction's happening around his place, so that's not going to work. So instead, I have the ever lovely Brandon Miracle and Daniel Alba with me. Welcome, fellas. How you doing today?
Not too shabby.
Doing good.
That's
yeah,
good.
You wanted some more good vibes, so you brought Brandon and I along to help neutralize the bad previous weeks.
We needed it. We absolutely needed it. And Ash's title, Ash's suggestion for us that everybody was like really down for is the best sequels in gaming, the ones that really changed up and improved upon the originals. And it was funny because our lovely live audience who's watching us right now had a ton of suggestions and a lot of like mainstays, and we looked at it, it's like, wow, none of us have any of the ones they mentioned. That's interesting. So I guess we're going to be getting us a few swerves this time around, unless any of us saw those and be like, oh my god, we do need to put that on. I don't know.
I haven't changed.
We'll have to decide. But I am going to follow the Steve method and go in order, except I don't want to start with myself. That just seems big-headed of me. So instead, I got to go to my right. Brandon, what is your first choice for one of the best sequels of all time?
So, one of the best sequels of all time for me. This is my opinion. Don't shoot me. This is not actually the first sequel. It's the second sequel. This is Kirby's Dreamland 2.
Ooh.
Which is the third Kirby game, mainline Kirby game, after Kirby's Adventure. For those of you who don't know, in the first Kirby game, Kirby's Dreamland, Kirby didn't have the ability to suck up enemies and steal their powers. He could just suck up enemies, and that was kind of the basis for the gameplay. And then Kirby's Adventure added copy abilities, but that wasn't my first experience with that. It was actually Kirby's Dreamland 2 on Game Boy for me. Mm-hmm. So they had copy abilities, but in addition to that, they also had Kirby's animal friends, Rick, Kine, and Koo, who to this day I still love dearly.
How could you not?
And if Kine isn't your favorite, we can't be friends. Sorry.
It was always Rick as a kid.
I mean, Rick's a good choice.
Rick's a good boy.
He is. But the biggest thing about Kirby's Dreamland 2 that became kind of a mainstay for the Kirby series is these items that you have to collect, like these MacGuffins that you have to collect to see the true ending of the game. For me, this was kind of mind-blowing as a kid, because you have that final fight with King Dedede. Spoiler alert going forward from here. And if you collect all the rainbow drops, there's one in every world of the game. I guess first I should explain that to get the rainbow drops, you needed certain combinations of animal friends plus copy abilities, but those weren't really spelled out to you. There was a little bit of experimentation involved. So for me as a kid, I had to like figure this out in my head. I'm like, okay, what power does this require? What animal friend does this need? And then sometimes one or both of those aren't actually available in the level that you need them in. So you have to go to another level, grab those things, come back and get the rainbow drop. But if you collect all 7 rainbow drops and then fight King Dedede, you get access to the real final boss of the game, which is the introduction to fan favorite villain of the series, Dark Matter, which is just awesome. Kirby gets a sword. You fly while you fight him. He has 2 stages. The first form, he's kind of like this dark swordsman, and then after you beat that, he becomes Dark Matter's true form, and you fight that. It's so cool. It's like super anime for this Game Boy game. Have either of you played?
I have. That was actually my first Kirby game. I did not have Dreamland 1. I didn't pick up Kirby's Adventure. But the rainbow drops were what kept me from seeing the ending. There was one, and I forget which level it was on, which world it was part of. I could not figure out how to get it as a kid. Couldn't figure it out.
I know which one it is.
And it's always that one, because I think it requires so much precise, like, you need this in order to get to this point, but at this point you need to switch over to this thing in order to get to this point, and it's just like, I could get there to where I'd see the rainbow drop, but I wouldn't have it. And it frustrated me so much as a kid. I loved the game. I would restart from scratch over and over again, thinking maybe this time if I start with a clean slate, I'll be able to get to the end. Never happened until finally with the Dream Collection on the Wii. I replayed it again finally and saw the true ending, got all the rainbow drops, and it is still cool. It's a great finale, great bonus to doing all that, those collectibles, and maybe inspired me wanting to go for 100% in all Kirby games ever since. Like, it's just one of those things where you gotta go for 100% in Kirby. That's where you get a lot of your challenge. And yeah, I do want to ask though. Well, rather than that, first, Daniel, do you have any experience with Dreamland 2?
Yeah, I've played this way long ago, so it's kind of fuzzy for me. But yeah, my first experience with the whole like Dark Matter trilogy, or with that series, would be Kirby 64, where you fight 02 at the end. I'm just like, oh my god, what is this monstrosity, and why is it named 0 with the 2 like in the top corner? And so I looked back at the series at that point, and I discovered more Kirby games from that. Like, I kind of broadened my horizons from there, and going into Kirby games even today, it did not disappoint when you want to see like the true final boss and how much of a horror it is, especially when you go back and it's like the one that's like bleeding in your
bleeds at
face,
you,
literally.
Yeah,
which was really shocking for back then, even now today. But yeah, Kirby's Dreamland 2. I still have fuzzy memories about it, but I still remember like having all the friends at your arsenal. Playing Star Allies really brought me back to that right away because of how it introduced those kind of characters as well, Rick, Kind, and Ku.
That was a good day for Brandon.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be on team. I'm gonna have to be the one that says Team Ku because Bird. So I guess we all have our own separate stands here, apparently.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a great game, and just continuing to lay down the foundation that was going to become staples for the Kirby series going forward.
I think it's worth noting too, and if you saw John's video this morning, this is the first mainline Kirby game that wasn't directed by Masahiro Sakurai, and it kind of started the trend that we know Kirby games for today by, you know, having a certain amount of collectibles you need to see the true ending, and then the true ending is some like eldritch horror monstrosity.
Yeah.
That deeply adds to the Kirby lore.
We kind of got that with Adventure with I think it was Nightmare, but
yeah,
he's not that eldritch horror. Like, he's just a big guy. It's like, yeah, he's definitely darker than DDD, but maybe not that crazy. But then you get to the stuff in Dreamland 2 and beyond. It's like, oh, there it is. There it is.
I love how Nightmare is tame compared to what we have now. Like looking back on it.
Yeah,
Nightmare is nothing compared to what we have.
I've still not reached the end of Forgotten Land, so I can't comment on that one. But as far as Star Allies, oh yeah, they're going wild, and just the lore they're tossing at you and getting like
Star Allies blew my mind at the end of that game.
Oh yeah, and
what that was crazy.
Yeah, the concept of what Kirby actually is at this point. Mm-hmm. Basically, I saw somebody sum it up pretty well on Twitter the other day. Kirby's essentially the god of positivity, which, there you go.
Yeah.
Such a good boy.
Yeah, that's why he's a good boy. But what makes Dreamland... that actually gets me back to this. What makes Dreamland 2, in your opinion, a better sequel than Kirby's Adventure? Is it just because you didn't play Kirby's Adventure right away, or?
I think that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the other element, like I said, where it kind of really started this trend that Kirby games are really well known for now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it mostly comes to that, as well as like the element of the friends, because when you have a power-up or like a copy ability, and then you combine it with an animal friend, it actually becomes a different move. That's something we've seen them explore a little bit going forward. So there's a couple elements here and there that have been carried forward in the Kirby series up to now.
Nice. All right. Well, let's see what Daniel's idea of a great sequel is with his first choice. Daniel, lay it on us.
Well, here's one that I'm pretty sure we can all be on board with. One of my favorite sequels to a game that I've played that I still think about and I've played very recently to this day too, would be Kingdom Hearts 2. the sequel to the first Kingdom Hearts, which if I were to go back today and play, I probably would not. I'd be complaining as to why I'm not playing Kingdom Hearts 2 instead. Going back to the first game, it's kind of archaic in its design, in the way the battle works, in its functions in certain ways. The story was like a classic tale. Like I enjoyed the story for what it was, like really talking about Disney villains and all, and the heart of all worlds and all this stuff that we got way too deep into in further sequels. But like the battles in Kingdom Hearts 2 were so much more fleshed out. It felt a lot more freeing. There's the caveat of the intro, which takes way too long and overstays its welcome. But I think once it's like the whole like, oh, you got to watch the first 2 episodes of this show and then it gets good. Because after that, it becomes like one of my favorite Kingdom Hearts games after alongside Birth by Sleep. But
it always succeeds in feeling like a big moment when you do get control of Sora again, though.
Yeah, there's like that triumphant, like his theme starts playing and the Goofy and Donald are there and he's way too big for his clothing and. It's just,
they kind of replicated that moment in Kingdom Hearts 3 with the whole 2.8 gag. Like you're still playing Sora, but you don't become Kingdom Hearts 3 Sora until after that.
Oh god, that was the 2.9 because we already had 0.8.
Yeah, that was great.
Just wants to troll us to hell.
I think he's just like in on the joke at that point. It's like, all right, we've seen what you're saying. Here you go.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, some of my favorite mechanics in that is like the drive forms, like those make you feel so powerful. Like it's nothing like the first game, which would have summons, which this game still has, but the summons felt largely like not very useful. Which but yeah, like adding to that, just the fact that some people are gonna be always very divisive about the story, but that's the point where it really started to like take its own personality and do its own thing with the organization, with just all the nobodies and having Roxas be a part of it as well. I don't know. I enjoy that kind of crazy anime BS that this game goes for, that I think a lot of us do as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a sequel that I just really enjoy playing, and it just builds upon what it has in the first game in so many different ways. And I don't know. There's some games in the series that maybe don't expand upon it as well. It kind of branches out and does unique things, like with Birth by Sleep. But I really just love the way that Kingdom Hearts 2 does it, and that's really just that's my opinion, though.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad opinion. I know a lot of people hold up Kingdom Hearts 2 as sort of the pinnacle of gameplay in Kingdom Hearts 2, and I've always been kind of split on Kingdom Hearts 2. On one hand, I unapologetically love the story. It drew me in the first time I played it. I still enjoy it and find a lot of now, going back with clarity about what it all is leading to and what they're talking about. Great stuff. I really do enjoy it. It's weird, but once you're into the world of Kingdom Hearts, for lack of a better word, you go with it. You roll with it. That's the whole point of Kingdom Hearts as a series. You roll with it and just like, sure, this is happening. Don't fully know why, but I'm here for the ride. It is a roller coaster, and Kingdom Hearts 2 encapsulates that. It is, as you said, it is probably one of the biggest power fantasies in the series. You feel so strong in that game as you get drive after drive, get more abilities, and the combat just feels fantastic the entire way through. My biggest problem with it, though, is that it had a side effect on the levels. And I found a lot of the worlds to be extremely bland, and that's my big complaint for 2, is that the levels are so flat and kind of samey, other than the aesthetics. And I think to Kingdom Hearts 1 and how you're going along the jungles of Tarzan, or you're solving the weirdness of Alice in Wonderland, and maybe these aren't the best levels, but I like the idea of having platforming on there to kind of break up the fighting a little bit. So to me, it's a slightly imperfect sequel that I find Kingdom Hearts 3 balances the best, which is probably why I attached to it so much more, because Kingdom Hearts 3 had that exploration back that I really, really wanted. But 2 is still utterly fantastic. I think you've gotten to 2 as well, right, Brandon?
I've played every game in the series.
Perfect. Good man.
Kingdom Hearts 2, well, except for Coded, but I don't think I need to.
can skip that.
Yeah. Kingdom Hearts 2, I had a similar experience with. People who know me know my opinions about Kingdom Hearts 1. I think it's a bad game, just outright.
I have a soft spot for it, but yeah.
No, and I understand that, and I certainly wouldn't take that away from anybody. But Kingdom Hearts 2 felt like when Kingdom Hearts became a video game and not just like a, some child's fantasy. You know what I'm saying? Like, Kingdom Hearts is built on the concept that you're mashing, Final Fantasy and Disney worlds together to make this kind of weird love child. But Kingdom Hearts 2 takes it a step further and actually backs it with gameplay that's interesting and fun. Like, it's built on the same idea as the first one, but it's actually mechanically sound and feels good to play. So for me, I'm in total agreement. I do think the games get better after that, personally. And I might have that opinion because I came into the Kingdom Hearts series late compared to most people. I only played the series for the first time like 3 or 4 years ago. So to me, like, my favorite experiences are probably Dream Drop Distance in Kingdom Hearts 3 in terms of sheer gameplay, but Kingdom Hearts 2 is like a landmark improvement over the first one.
Yeah.
Kind of set the stage.
I definitely know what you mean about like the worlds being a bit less intuitive, like a bit less more interesting to explore in the second game. The other worlds have it a bit better as far as exploration. Although Kingdom Hearts 1's worlds, like although you get like the set pieces of places like Alice in Wonderland or ones that we continuously see over and over, like Halloween Town, like they're just painful to explore. I was lost in Alice in Wonderland for so long.
It is kind of a bad first impression because you go to your first Disney World and it's Alice in Wonderland because that's the one that's marked as the easiest. So you're like, all right, let's go to this one, and it's like, where do I go? It's not so hard after after the first time, but I do remember I needed to like follow a guide. It's like, where the heck am I going?
It was even worse for me. I got lost in Traverse Town.
Oh no!
Oh my god!
That same thing happened to
Donald
Amy.
And Goofy.
Yeah,
I can't find them.
Yeah, it was just so confusing to explore some of these worlds, and like, yeah, I remember even Halloween Town was a pain because you have to do certain, you have to just explore certain things, and interact with certain pieces of the world with magic to make things function. Which, I mean, it's fun to find puzzles like that, but some of them didn't really have much of a cue to do such a thing. I guess that's why it took a little bit of a backseat in 2.
Yeah, instead it's like, go to Halloween Town, go to Christmas Town, go to Halloween Town, go to Christmas Town, back and forth over and over.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, like, I think just the worlds themselves, like the ones you do visit, I think they kind of make up for the fact that they're a little bit bland. Like, you visit Pirates of the Caribbean, you visit Tron, you visit Timeless River, which is still one of the most striking, visually pleasing things to leave is black and white, but just the fact that they went for that aesthetic is so fun and just different than what you'd expect from something to come out of like Disney or Square, at least at the time. But yeah, like then we have like Final Mix, which added a whole bunch more stuff. You could be like Limit Form Sora, which could do a bunch of attacks from Kingdom Hearts 1, which was the best thing that Kingdom Hearts 1 adopted to 2. But no, that's harsh. But yeah, I just love Kingdom Hearts 2 for what it's done. Just strictly being a sequel to the first game, I think that game improved the most upon anything other game in that series.
Yeah, so. I could definitely see that. I still think I put Birth by Sleep and 3 above 2 personally for me, but 2 is you can't deny 2 as just, again, here's the course we're on. This is what we're doing from now on. This is what we're kind of known for. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So for my first choice for a favorite sequel, it has always stood out to me because it feels like just such a example of taking the core idea of what worked about the first game and improving every single freaking thing about it. And that's Ratchet and Clank Going Commando. It is like the original Ratchet and Clank is fun. You got the crazy weapons, you got the fun platforming, but there's limitations, especially going back now, where there's no strafe. It's just like, it's fun, but it's just Ratchet's kind of a jerk. It just doesn't work too well. But you get into Going Commando, all of a sudden you do have a strafe. And then the biggest change, the best change they ever introduced in Ratchet and Clank, weapons evolve. Not only does Ratchet have experience, and that allows him to increase his own health bar, but every weapon can earn experience and evolve into a better version of it, which encouraged you to switch it up, play different weapons. That's what I always do in Ratchet and Clank now. As soon as one weapon is fully leveled, I am off to the next one. I will use every single weapon and really see what they all can do, and it just leads to so much fun. We got a better Ratchet personality, a fun story that kind of gives a bit more of the humor that you're kind of used to at that point. It does kind of falter a little bit because of the rush development, but it still works in that way. It's still my favorite of the PlayStation 2 trilogy, and I think it has the best mix of platforming and gunplay at that point. And I think it just does pretty much everything right as a sequel. Have either of you two played? I'm guessing not.
The only Ratchet game I've played is Rift Apart.
Oh. I played more than Rift Apart. I played the what was it, 2016, that version that was out, like kind of a soft reboot for the series.
Mm-hmm.
I played that was the first one that I played. I think I'm in the same situation as Ash. I think he played that one, and then the one after we played was Rift Apart. But this is what the kind of conversation that gets me interested in playing more in the series. I'm clearly missing out on a lot of great titles in this series, and going Commando is definitely one of those.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how much they did. You'll if you ever do play the first one, you'll notice just like, oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't do this. Oh man, getting to this item and doing this thing is a pain, because each of the equipments for puzzles was its own weapon slot. So you had to attach it to your quick select bar in order to actually get to it, which, they definitely streamlined later on. It's like, oh, hey, you need this weapon for this thing. Just walk up to it and push a button. You're good now. You don't have to actually equip it. There's a lot of ways they've streamlined it as time went on. I do want to address, we got Mineta in the live audience saying put 3/2. A lot of people put 3/2 as well. It does introduce Dr. Nefarious. Great villain. Fun story to it all. I just, as a platformer fan, I missed the platforming because 3 goes heavy on the combat. It is much more focused on just shooting, and it's how it separated itself in the time. You needed to have a gimmick in the PlayStation 2 era for a platformer. You couldn't just be a platformer. You needed to be a platformer that's also a shooter, a platformer that's also stealth, a platformer that's also GTA for some reason, if you want to talk about the big 3. So that's why they kind of leaned that way. But yeah, I know there's for my fellow Ratchet fans, I'm sure you can understand, but yeah, I think going Commando is just a perfect example of taking everything that was a weakness of the first one and improving upon it tenfold. So
nice.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So Brandon, what's your second choice as another great sequel?
This one is a licensed game, funnily enough. Growing up in the 90s and 2000s, I was blessed with many a great Dragon Ball game. There were also many bad ones, but we got a sequel to just an awful Game Boy Advance game known as Legacy of Goku, called Legacy of Goku 2. If you look at Legacy of Goku 1 and Legacy of Goku 2 side by side, you might not even know they're from the same series. Legacy of Goku is that bad.
Yep.
But Legacy of Goku 2 added just a ton of character animations. Like when you punch, you're also kicking and doing all the cool things you'd see in the anime. In Legacy of Goku 1, Goku's punch animation is just that. You start fighting squirrels and wolves and get your butt kicked because you're sure.
This canonically takes place at the beginning of DBZ, where he's already beaten Piccolo.
Yeah.
And you're losing to squirrels and wolves.
Oh god, it's just an awful game. But Legacy of Goku 2 is amazing. It covers the androids and Cell sagas, which are some of the most beloved in the series. But just the improvements to the graphics, they kind of invoke some of those Super Nintendo RPGs in its visual style, kind of the short, stout characters with big eyes, kind of like what you'd see in Final Fantasy or Chrono Trigger. But but it has a cool leveling up system. It's technically an action RPG. Every time you land an attack, you see a damage number. So whenever you get stronger, you feel that, and it's really important to kind of capture that feeling in a series like Dragon Ball, where training and bettering yourself is such a core component of its story. But you can do all the cool key attacks from the series. One of the things that I think Boo's Fury, which is the third game, does better than 2, is that it actually actively recharges your energy meter constantly, as to where in 2, it's finite. So most of the time, you're playing the game with an empty energy meter and can't actually use all the cool attacks you've been given access to. But still, it's a great way to relive the Cell Saga. Most of its dialogue is captured directly from the anime, and if you were around back then, you know that the dub around that time.
You want a time capsule?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You didn't kill your enemies in Dragon Ball Z back then. You destroyed them. You couldn't say they were dead on TV.
You sent them to the next dimension.
Yeah. So all that goofy stuff from the dub around that time is there, including the Bruce Falconer soundtrack, which I know is divisive for people.
It's pretty great during the Cell arc, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it is great. It's not my preferred way to experience Dragon Ball, but when it's good, especially Cell's theme itself. If you haven't heard the Falconer Cell theme, definitely look it up. It's pretty raw.
Oh, yeah.
But in addition to that, it also lets you play as other characters because, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, you know that the series isn't just about Goku. At the beginning of Legacy of Goku 2, actually started Gohan, who was my favorite character growing up. But you can play as Gohan, Goku, Vegeta, Future Trunks, and Piccolo. And you can all level them up. Oh, there's also a secret character. I'm sorry. You can unlock Hercule at the end.
Yeah.
And he's like pitifully weak. He does like 1 damage per punch. But the game challenges you to level him up to max because there's an alternate ending if you can manage that.
I don't think I knew that. That's awesome.
Yeah, if you can get Mr. Satan to level 50, you can break a door that lets you go to like a television studio, and then you get to watch a scene where he claims that he defeated Cell and he's the world champion and all that crap.
Oh my god. That's perfect.
That's
for him.
amazing.
Yeah. But this is by far one of my favorite Dragon Ball Z games. It's on Game Boy Advance. You could probably pick it up dirt cheap. Definitely try it out. I think it's awesome.
I'm sad I never experienced it because I picked up the first one. It sucked. I beat it.
It's such a bad game.
But it's like, I was like, well, I don't want more of that, so I skipped the next 2. And
can you believe they were developed by the same people?
I know. And the thing is, you couldn't trust reviews at the time because I don't even think I think they all said it's like, they're just as bad as the first one. But they're not Dragon Ball fans. So they didn't know any different. And so...
Didn't know any better.
Yeah. So you couldn't get a reliable, like, this is actually way better and good. You should do it. You should get into it. But it's like, just as a game, it's just like, no, this still sucks according to, non-Dragon Ball fans, which, hey, it might. It's still simple. But as Dragon Ball fans, it's cool to go through that,
Yeah. I think it's a better way to experience the story than even, like, Kakarot. And I loved Kakarot, despite its many, 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 many flaws. And to address chat, Brandon Bovia says, I hear Boo's Fury is even better. It is. It is better. So if you like 2 enough, then you're in for an even better finale.
Which one was Broly the secret, like a super boss?
Boo's Fury.
Boo's Fury, okay. Wasn't sure which one.
Legacy of Goku 2 has Cooler as a secret boss.
Oh.
But that's something I should mention. They weave the non-canon movies into the story, so there's a lot of content.
That's cool. That is always cool.
I was warned not to play the first one way back then, so I just the only one I have, like any Dragon Ball game, really is Legacy of Goku 2, and that was so cool. Like the box art is hollow foil, like foiled. You can it shines, and then you open it up, and you have like this mini poster that came with it. Yeah, and it was like, oh my god, I'm gonna hang this up, and then I lost it.
The great thing is that my poster I think is still intact because.
Oh, nice.
They also supplied a poster in Nintendo Power, and it was the same one.
Oh yeah,
or maybe it was the other way around. Yeah, you saw it at my house because we happened to open the magazine that had it in it.
Yeah.
That's
so I had like a
amazing.
double,
Yeah.
apparently. But yeah, it's a really fun way to experience it. It's just a fun surprise to find a licensed game like that that engaging with so much content in that era.
Mhm.
But yeah,
And to be such an improvement over the original, like it's
like
mind-boggling.
unrecognizably so.
Yeah. Not even the same universe.
Yeah, you went from a objectively bad game to, hey, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, Daniel, what is your second choice for a great sequel?
Okay, well, this one, I'm gonna cheat just a little bit for this one because when people think about it, they don't really think about it being a sequel. But it definitely is. For me, it is one of the best games I've ever played too. Earthbound, which is technically Mother 2.
That's true.
If you want to get into this series, please play Earthbound first. Don't play Earthbound Beginnings first.
Yeah.
If you can, if it's available to you, Mother 3 after Earthbound, because I think you're able to appreciate what you get in Earthbound Beginnings or Mother 1 after playing the other games, because there's such an improvement in just a lot of staples that you see that indie games and RPGs take today, and that they can still take from today. But yeah, Earthbound is such a beloved title. Like, I'm not sure how much more people can say about it that hasn't already been said. But like, I loved its world. It's such a funny like game ahead of its time that is parodying off JRPGs by setting it in a fictional like American world. Like, it's freaking called like Eagle Land, for crying out loud. So
Yeah.
but yeah, like people here know, like, we love Earthbound. Like Ness as a character has endured for so long, partially because of like the legacy, not just Smash Brothers, but just because of the legacy that Earthbound is holding even today by even inspiring creators to build games based off of this kind of overall structure. But there's some mechanics about it that are still like they still can be used today, like just being able to encounter an enemy on the field itself instead of like random encounters that Earthbound Beginnings was very criminal, very offensive in doing. Things like if you're already over leveled, if you're too over leveled for an encounter and you encounter that enemy, you just kind of skip the battle. Like, that's so ahead of its time, even for today, that we don't see too often. But just its story, just its goofy writing, like, I just love it so much. Like, it's the kind of game where you want to talk to everybody to see what kind of quirky thing they say, because Shigesato Itoi made such a masterpiece in writing and characterization for not just the characters you meet, but also like the villains as well. And there's so much about it that I love. And just mechanically, how the battles work, where you're fighting your enemy, and then when you get hit, it's a ticker that goes down. So even if you sustain mortal damage, you can still have enough time to correct that before your ticker hits 0. And yeah, just unique ideas that I haven't seen anymore in games even to this day. So but what are your experiences with Earthbound?
I always especially loved the ticker mechanic with the HP, because when you're like fighting a high level boss or something and you sustain mortal damage, there's like an immense amount of pressure on you as a player to save your party member before they die. It changes the way you interact with battles. Like, they become a lot more personal because it's up to you to stop them from dying. You know they're going to, but you can prevent that. And you know, there's an element in Itoi's games where you are kind of an element of the plot in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the game acknowledges you as a person, usually early on in the game. And I don't know, there's something uniquely special about that really resonated with me. And I should say, I only beat Earthbound for the first time a few months ago, and then Mother 3 just a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
So these are very fresh in my mind. And I'm going to have a kind of postpartum from Mother 3 that I imagine other fans have been having for years.
Oh yeah, join us.
Oh God, I will have to say that I have not touched. I played a little bit of the original Earthbound, but I don't even think I met Paula at the time. I got pulled away to other work things and just never got back to Earthbound. So I have not experienced enough of that game. It definitely comes across as extremely charming. It is on my list. It is going to be played eventually. But yeah, I'm not in the cult of Earthbound quite yet, but I probably will be, because I love me a good RPG, and I've done my best to stay as unspoiled on the moment to moment things as best I can, for as much as I can. There's certain elements that I am aware about, because Sakurai loves to spoil things in his descriptions.
Boy, don't he?
Oh yeah, he'll spoil you. He does not care. It's up to you. You should have been playing this.
Apparently.
Too bad I played Brawl in 2008 when Mother 3 was definitely accessible to everybody.
Oh yeah. So there's elements, but you can still get hit hard by something. Even though you're aware of other things, and I'm sure there's other elements there. Looking forward to trying it out. I've seen Earthbound Beginnings, and holy crap! Well, that is an NES RPG, and I'd be very curious to see how that compares to like Final Fantasy 1 and Dragon Quest 1. I'm not sure if it might be worse.
Yeah.
I think I probably would play Dragon Quest over playing Earthbound Beginnings again.
Yeah. I mean, Dragon Quest is all about grinding, but damn it, it's a comfy game. I don't know why, but it's really cozy.
The future elements that come out of like Mother 2 are there in Earthbound Beginnings. So like it's still technically a more advanced game, but the way that the gameplay is balanced against you is just a little too archaic.
Mm-hmm.
Like it works against itself. In the case of like Dragon Quest, getting defeated and going right back out to start level grinding again, there's a charm to that. Earthbound Beginnings doesn't quite land on that.
Oh boy.
To answer Hustlebun in chat, did you cry at the end of Mother 3? I cried at the end of Mother 2.
Oh wow.
If you don't at least get misty-eyed at the end of Mother 3, you don't have feelings as a human being.
Oh no.
but yeah, big emotion, a lot of emotion in Mother 3, and also Mother 2. Yeah, Earthbound has some moments where you feel like, you feel for these characters, you care about them, and it's such a timeless classic, and I just adore it so much for what it does. It does some things it kind of makes fun of itself for the things that it does backwards, like when you want to call your inventory, it takes a moment. You have to walk around the world, and you have to call the Escargot Express, which is still a brilliant ironic name for it. But then the man comes to you, and then he takes your item, and then he heads off, and it's just
and it costs you money. You have to pay for the service.
Oh my god.
It's okay. Your dad pays you like thousands of dollars for beating up animals anyway, so you're all good there.
If you're in certain small places when you make the call, sometimes you'll get like a call back saying, "Hey, we can't find you."
It's like, please try again.
Where are you at?
It makes you laugh in such unexpected places, but that's one of the reasons why I love it so much.
That's awesome. Yeah, eventually, but not quite yet.
Looking forward to it, Derek.
Yeah, me too. So, I am so split between my what sequel I want to talk about more. One feels a bit more personal for me. The other one I think is a bit more widely agreed upon. And I think in this case, I'm going to go for the more widely agreed upon one, because it is good to go take a look back and look at just how much was changed and improved from the first game to the second game. And that is Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like, dear God, what a sequel. And the fact that I believe it was made in 10 months? I think it had it had a very, very limited development schedule. And to see how much they added from Smash 1 to Melee, my God. It is like, how many more characters we get? I think we got like 12, 15 new characters.
13 more in Melee.
Yeah.
Because there are 12 in the original and 25 in that one.
Yeah. So 13 new characters, covering a lot more series, introducing a lot of people to two new series, and trophies. Trophies were the most addictive thing in that game. I needed them all. The event matches, all the special matches you got, the sort of a precursor to what we got with spirit battles. Just there was some sort of drive to that game that made you want to do everything in it. And I appreciate a fighting game that has a lot of single player content, and dear God did Smash Melee have that, because I did feel like I missed out a little bit on not having a Nintendo 64, missing out on Smash 64, getting to play with friends and whatnot. So I needed to have Melee when it came out, and thankfully I had a GameCube, and losing hours upon hours in that game, playing with friends, playing by myself, unlocking all the trophies, going through adventure mode with every character, going through classic mode with every character, just seeing everything it had to offer and doing it all and finding new characters for me to enjoy. This is how ostensibly how I was introduced to Ness, Captain Falcon, Fox, really, the Fire Emblem characters for everybody. Nobody knew who Marth was unless you're a huge Nintendo fan going into that. And then you got these cool moments like, oh hell, there's Mewtwo's in this. That's awesome. Just, I don't know. It really just seemed like such a vast step up to the previous one. And I think it's still been, there's a lot of Melee fans still out there. They love the movements, the way that it can be manipulated and worked through it and all that stuff. But I still believe that it's been improved upon, and Ultimate is the best version of that. But as far as a game-to-game improvement, 64 to Melee is huge.
Just the fact that there are so many unique ways to play that game by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Classic mode, Adventure mode, and All-Star mode are all so radically different from each other, but they're all the same core principle of beating up other people.
Mm-hmm.
But they're done in such unique ways. Like, if you want that raw arcade feel, you play Classic mode. If you want something that is a little more grandiose, that pays tribute to the series that you're experiencing, you play Adventure mode. And if you want just like the most balls to the wall challenge that you can get, you play All-Star mode. There's just something for everybody. And then let's not even get started with event matches. Like you said, it's the precursor to what we got in Ultimate with the Spirit Battles. The first thing I did when I got Melee was I did all 51 event matches. I just spent the day doing it because I was like, oh, this is so cool. Every fight's different.
Uh-huh. And then you get that wonderful reward at the end, Giga Bowser. That shocked me. I'm like, oh my God. And that was so hard because he had, I think it was Ganondorf and Mewtwo with him or something like that. It's like, dear God.
And I think beating that got you Final Destination as a playable stage, which
maybe?
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And that's an amazing reward because you didn't get that in Smash 64.
That's weird.
Yeah, you only fought Master Hand. That's the only time you ever saw it, was fighting Master Hand in Smash 64. And even the music didn't come back from that stage until Ultimate. Like, that's the only time that song from that stage has ever returned to Smash Brothers. So it's really like a lost stage in time that they brought back for Melee. But man, yeah, Melee is such a crazy improvement upon the original game. In terms of characters and mechanics, and just it added side specials. Even something as simple as that changed the entire moveset of all the characters on the roster from 64 and bringing them to this game. It really, I mean, I got the introduction for a lot of these characters in 64, but then this was the era where I was like, I want to start playing the games that these characters are from, like Metroid and Earthbound and eventually Fire Emblem, which would come out and become a staple series for me.
Oh, me too.
That I would play every single title for that was possible. But yeah, even, gosh, as you said, the event matches were such a unique way to approach the game. I played the one where you can summon only legendary Pokemon so many times because that was the only time you could ever see them, and just completely obliterate all these wireframes and just that. But beyond that, like, as mentioned earlier, before I knew anything about a lot of Nintendo, Sakurai was able to grant us with a little encyclopedia with the trophies, which I'll have a little blurb about these bits and pieces of Nintendo history. Some games I still haven't touched to this day, but I still know a little bit more about it by having all these blurbs here.
It's thanks to that I have a lot of my gaming knowledge. Like, now I know what Famicom Detective Club is, Doshin the Giant, and all these other weird side games from Nintendo. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, and just titles that we were gonna get but didn't get yet, like the Animal Crossing trophies, which were still
Right.
like when you go to the description, it still says working title because it wasn't out on the GameCube yet, but it was for the N64 over in Japan.
KK
And
Slider didn't even have a localized name yet.
Oh, right.
oh yeah, Toda KK was still
Yeah.
just that on there.
Oh my gosh! And there was also, it was still so early that you only way you could get a Pikmin trophy was by having a save file of Pikmin.
Funny story about that. When I was in middle school, I had just barely finished my trophy collection in Melee. I'd been working on it for years, probably.
Yeah.
And I finally met a friend who owned Pikmin, and I was like, I will borrow it. You borrow anything in my collection you want. I need the save data.
It has
and
to
I
happen.
finally got my complete collection.
God, and there were like secret trophies too, like Mario on Yoshi with the cape and Samus without her
Yeah.
helmet on. That
Mhm.
oh, those were so interesting.
Those were
Yeah.
event
Gee.
trophies, right? Like you could only get them at. You had to take your memory
think
card
so.
to tournaments, I think, or something like that.
Was
and then
that
they
the
would put
case?
it on
Oh
your
my
game.
god, that's crazy.
Yeah. It was like the whole like Pokemon get your legendary this way for a limited time sort of deal.
Mhm.
But my God, yeah, Melee. I spent so much time on Melee with friends. It's just the multiplayer experience. I've met and became friends with so many people playing Melee just because just it was something that everyone could connect with because so many of my friends like maybe they don't play all the series that I do, but their character that they really enjoy is there from like Star Fox to the Metroid because I wasn't a Metroid person and so on. And just a great introduction to anything Nintendo, really.
Yeah, it really is. I think it really started a lot of our generation into being interested in those other Nintendo games, and you got to respect it for it. What was your mains? Because I mean, sadly, I carried this over from Smash 64, but I love Fox. That's how I got into Fox. I just found him. I loved his
man.
reflector. I love that ability to send back items at people. So that's why I stuck with Fox.
My main in 64 was Yoshi because I loved Yoshi as a kid. I still love Yoshi. But eventually it became Mario and Melee, and as an adult, it's Captain Falcon.
Nice. What about you, Daniel?
My main in 64 was Mario and Luigi, and in Melee it was also mostly Mario, but also Luigi. But I played a lot of Roy as well. Really got me into learning more about that series through Roy, which I'm grateful for. That I think that they were originally planned to just not be included in versions outside of Japan, but they decided
were
to just
gonna be
have them there.
removed.
Yeah, I think so.
But thankfully they left that there, and now because it's one of their biggest franchises now, and Melee is part of the reason for that being the case.
Yeah, it's almost the reason, really. It's insane. Before we end this off, Steve, who is traveling at the moment and not able to take part, is in the chat right now. He jumped into the live audience, and he's very, very, very upset with us that we did not mention perhaps the greatest sequel of all time, according to him, which it's honestly kind of hard to argue. Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, that is really hard to argue.
Yeah,
Actually.
I thanks to the Street Fighter Anniversary Collection, I've played Street Fighter 1. I beat Street Fighter 1. My thumb was in agony by the end of that.
You beat Street Fighter 1?
Yes.
Beat it.
Why?
Because I wanted to see. I needed to see it, and I had an afternoon. I'm like, you know what? Let's go for this, and
Dang, man.
I
Props
did it.
to you.
oh god, it sucked. It sucked so hard, and man, it felt like such a night and day difference going from that game to Street Fighter 2, even the first Street Fighter 2, for that one. So yeah, it's. Oh, you want to talk about just a massive improvement across the board and really just changing its genre almost.
There's just so many. This just goes to show there's so many different genre-defining sequels that help shape and completely reform the first game so that it stands on its own. Like I think of Street Fighter. I own Street Fighter 2, like one of the few SNES games that I own, but I kind of forget that it is in fact a sequel because it's just improved so much upon the original.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to even like consider Street Fighter 1 part of the same series in the same way that Legacy of Goku 1 to me doesn't exist. It's not real.
Yeah.
It can't hurt
Right.
you.
It's like, yeah, that's how this numbering system goes. We just start with 2. That makes sense. That works out. It's weird, but you do just kind of forget. Hustle Bun gave us a ton of other games like Super Mario Brothers 3. I see some claiming No More Heroes 2. I've never played No More Heroes 2, so I can't say for that. But there's a ton of great sequels out there that really do improve. My other one I was going to mention, I was like wavering back and forth between this and Melee. I think Mega Man Legends 2 is better than the first. It has a lot of great improvements, but Melee I think has the bigger legacy, let's be honest.
Uncharted 2.
That was also on my list. Uncharted 2 is a massive improvement over the original Uncharted. Like, dear God.
Something on my list was also Portal 2, which was incredible compared to the first one. Just a crazy improvement in narrative and in ideas. It's just all around just a great sequel.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's a lot more sequels out there that we did not cover, and I'd love to hear them. Put them in the chat, comment, all that good stuff. Let us know what sequels really stood out for you as a great improvement over the original, or even sequels to sequels that improved upon those sequels and just made them sort of the definitive version. But for now, I think that covers it for our sequel discussion. So thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/gvgaming. But even just subscribing to the channel and ringing that bell helps us a ton. So until next time and until next week, bye.